Head high, shoulders square, now get your feet up off the ground. Get ready to Shero up to your Shero squares. Hello and welcome to another episode of Shero's Quest, where we're celebrating the extraordinary accomplishments of television producer Tracey R. Washington-Bagley of New York's WABC 7, where Tracey produces the monthly TV magazine show Here and Now with Sandra Bookman. She's six-time Emmy Award-winning producer and director of a short movie called Niko Newark. Welcome, Tracey, and thank you for coming on to Shero's Quest to share your journey with us.
Thanks for having me, Anita. Nice to see you.
You as well. And I must say that Tracey is my Shero. She's a mentor of mine from the past and still mentors me from time to time now. I'm so glad to have you here, Tracey. Now, diving right on in, tell us when you began your journey into wanting to become a producer and what motivated you to want to become a broadcast journalist.
Well, when I look back just as a kid, I realized that I was the kid that always asked a lot of questions, and I always had a little notepad. I like to write. Fast forward to high school, I was a journalist for our Uniondale High School Black and Gold newspaper. And even then, I didn't realize that I wanted to be a journalist, but I think it was pretty much in my DNA. My mom was an English teacher. And also my dad was a music enthusiast and loved equipment, setting up audio equipment, stereo equipment all through the house. He was also a photographer by hobby. So the combination of my, parents, I think, set me up for producing. Fast forward to after high school graduation, I decided to attend Ohio University, and they had a nightly newscast. And there I really realized, okay, this is what I want to do. But I spent a lot of time on the radio. I was an on-air host, and eventually they hired me as a staff producer. The students there had actually a chance to run the TV and radio stations. They were public television and radio stations. And so then I realized, okay, this is really my calling. This is what I love to do.
Okay. And where was your first journey into actually television, the actual industry?
Well, it's funny because I interviewed for a news reporter position up in Rochester, New York, a radio station, and they didn't hire me. So I was like, okay, well, guess that's not going to work out. I got nervous and whatever. The audition wasn't great. But then I ended up getting a job as master control engineer at WXXI Channel 21 PBS station. Mm-hmm. And that kind of started my journey. Eventually, I kind of went off to the left a little and went into sales at a radio station in Long Island. But I think what really gave me a strong foundation was the launching of News 12 Long Island. It started in Woodbury. It's now throughout the New York metro area. And I moved up from sound tech, E&G, live truck operator, and eventually to a producer. I was there for 4 years, and then ABC, owned station in Philadelphia, Channel 6, hired me as an associate producer. And that really propelled my career with the ABC Disney company.
Okay. And so have you, you're in a male really dominated field.
Yes.
What type of obstacles have you had to overcome as a female producer and as you moved along in the industry?
Well, it's interesting. Now you see more women than, well, not more women than men, but you see a lot more women doing the jobs that typically were done by males. When I started out, I was a sound tech in the field, and all the photographers were men. And we were what they call two-man crews. And I remember how, if they went for a shot with the camera, they might not tell me they were getting ready to move. They kind of jerked me around a little. And I was like, that's fine, And I used to have to hear all the guy talk. And, there was no such thing as a harassment at work that you could report. And so I took it, But I give some credit to my dad because he always wanted me to be the girl that knew football, the game of football, the game of basketball. He wanted me to know all this guy stuff. And so it kind of helped me fit in so that, I wasn't one of the guys, but I knew what they were talking about. So I kind of didn't pay much attention to it just because I love technology and it was just fun.
Okay. All right. Now moving forward to Here and Now. Tell us a little bit about Here and Now and where we could look at it or stream it or the things that are going on and some of the great things that you've done with the show.
Okay, so Here and Now airs weekly on ABC Channel 7 in the New York tri-state area. A weekly basis is on every Sunday at noon. We're also online, abc7ny.com/Here and Now. And now we also have a podcast that you can listen to wherever you subscribe. So everyone, everywhere around the world can listen to Here and Now with Sandra Bookman. She is an Eyewitness News anchor and host. The show is dedicated to African-American issues, from news stories to lifestyles, entertainment stories. It's a whole hour that dedicates, a look at what is of interest to people of color for the most part.
Okay.
Program featuring the news and interests of the African American community. Here's your host, Sandra Bookman.
Coming up, the talented young conductor set to take center stage at the Met, leading the groundbreaking opera X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X. Plus, preserving and protecting the legacy of black music, the founder of the American Black Music Association. That's all ahead on this half-hour edition of Here and Now. Guest is truly a maestro, reaching newer, more diverse audiences. With a repertoire that includes more than 30 operas around the world, he's returning to the Metropolitan Opera to conduct Anthony Davis's newly scored and groundbreaking opera, X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X. It is our pleasure to welcome conductor Kazim Abdullah. So very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
You get around, don't you?
I do get around, yeah. Especially, post-pandemic, I've been blessed to be able to sort of work all over the world again. And so, I really feel very fortunate to be able to work not only with opera houses in the United States, but also in Europe as well. So.
And was that part of your dream? Was that the intent, or were you just, I'm going to get in that business. I'm going to get in the music business. I'm going to...
it was always my dream, probably from when I was a teenager, to become a conductor, actually. Mm-hmm. So, I have a pretty full music background. I grew up playing the clarinet and playing in youth orchestras and things like this. And just this time of playing in the orchestra made me look at the conductor in a certain way. And I thought, I'd like to do that. And so I just kind of did all the things that one has to do in order to become a conductor from a musician.
Yeah, it spoke to you. You're a graduate of the prestigious Peabody Conservatory. You were born in Indianapolis. Your parents are originally from Sierra Leone?
Yeah, my father is from Sierra Leone and my mom is from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay, all right. So, but I guess you talked about being able to play all over the world. That your upbringing, did that sort of make it even more important to you? And because you had another perspective at home, your father not, being born in this country.
No, definitely. I had another perspective, and I had my father being of African descent was kind of very practical in a way, but it made me sort of realize that if he was always a little bit not skeptical, but always just thinking maybe be a doctor, maybe
something that makes sense to me.
Something that makes sense to me. But I have to say that both of my parents were very supportive about me doing music and about me studying it, and I think what I learned sort of growing up, and especially from my mom, she always said you should pursue what your interests are, mm-hmm. and then try to do what you can to make it work.
Yeah, and you have done more than what you can to make it work, have you not?
Yeah.
Now, you made your debut at the Met back in 2009.
I did.
And I can only imagine you were just over the moon.
Of course.
By that opportunity. What does it feel like coming back to do this?
If I'm so glad to have. I mean, you know, when I was working at the Met in 2009, I was on the music staff at the time, and I did 2 final performances of Lux Orfeo, and then since then, like, you know, I moved to Germany. I had a job in Germany as music director of an orchestra and opera house there, and to be able to come back in a production that I am leading and bringing to fruition at the greatest opera house in the world, where I got some of my initial training. There's nothing more exciting, I have to say. And especially to have my first project at the Met to be this opera about Malcolm X, who's sort of this iconic figure that has ties to New York City. One couldn't imagine a better way to return.
Yeah, and it is, and I can, just listening to you talk about it, I suspect it is personal for you on many different levels.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What is your thoughts on the new streaming and things of that nature when it comes to getting your ideas out there and people seeing your actual producing skills and things?
Well, I think what's great is that a lot of different television stations and markets across the country, they don't have African-American focused programs. We're one of the few. And we may be the only one that's on consistently and definitely for an hour every week. And Here and Now, I must say, grew out of a show called Like It Is with Gil Noble, which started during the Civil Rights Movement. It launched in 1967. And so for decades, that was pretty much the mecca of, I'll say, African-American programs in our Here and Now. The second chapter to Like It Is, you can, as I mentioned, you can watch it anywhere. So that's been just phenomenal.
Okay. That's great. And speaking of civil rights era and that time, tell us a little bit about Niko Newark and your involvement in that.
So I was asked to direct a short film titled Niko Newark, and it's all about a Greek Puerto Rican boy who grew up in Newark and worked alongside his father in a diner in Newark. And he got to see people of, you know, from all walks of life. And it's interesting because the nucleus of the story is that he became friends with a Black kid during the Newark riots.
How does Nikki sound to you guys, huh?
I think Nikki sounds good.
There it is. A Nikki Newark. And don't you worry, Nikki. I'll get you that atomic fireball.
Niko, there is a dirty table over here.
All right, mister, I have to go.
Yeah, it was good talking to you, kid. And hey, by the way, they call me Cookie. Easy to remember, right?
Yeah.
I not tell you, no bother the customers.
A growing crowd gathers as a Negro man is brought into the Newark 4th Precinct.
Ma'am, can you tell us more about why you all gathered here?
Well, these cops, they pulled up and opened the back door and a man just fell out. I thought, wow, they must have beaten him pretty good. I mean, he wasn't moving at all.
Niko! Take this outside.
Where do I put it?
It go where the trash go. Out the back. Don't be stupid.
They pulled him out and started dragging him down the street. As they got closer, y'all could see that the man was already dead. What is it that he could have done to make them beat him to death like that?
Come on, give it back. Keep your eye on the ball. It's mine.
You okay? Are you hurt?
No.
Don't let people get away with stuff like that.
What?
It's just, well, if you help people already once, we'll do it forever.
Louis! Louis! I gotta go. Thanks for the fries.
What type of advice would you give to young girls that are aspiring to be producers and directors?
Well, I think what makes a good producer is someone that likes to storytell. That you're the person, perhaps amongst your friends, that loves to report on different happenings, so to speak, at school or wherever. If you're the one that's intrigued by others and you like to showcase them and you care about getting information to others, that important information, and if you like to write and if you love to read, I think that will set you in the right direction, so to speak. It's also important to watch and listen to the pros that are already doing their job. Listen to, how they report on a story. Watch different types of shows, not just one type, and see how they're, created. There's a difference in a reality show versus a news show. There's a difference in, a long form movie versus a short. So there's a lot of opportunity because there's so much out there now to look at. But first and foremost, you need to have a passion for it. You really need to have a passion for it.
And now with when you're talking about the long format and the short format, what distinguishes the two?
So news stories typically can be as short as 30 seconds to 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, but they're normally short stories. It's pretty much a bullet point that a reporter is giving you about an issue, a topic, right? Long form, you have basically what it says, a longer length of time to tell someone's story. You sit down with them, you tell their story, and you allow them, or actually they tell their story. You ask questions, you're looking at pictures of them, video. It's a longer length story, which I always love because I felt like, this is the way I would want a story told to me. And if you're creative, it's a lot of fun. You get to add music and, a lot of producers edit, and then sometimes you pass the baton to an editor, but it's pretty much your design, your creation.
So with YouTube and podcasting and the different things of that nature on YouTube, what is your thoughts about the accuracy of stories that are being told out here and the things that are being verified?
Well, I think that you have to be careful because there is a lot of information out there. Consider the source, so to speak. My mother used to say that to me as a kid. Consider the source, like where's it coming from? So if you know that you're watching ABC or another network, of course I'm going to say ABC, but we have attorneys that are going to make sure we get the story right, because the company is not in the business to be sued and not in the business to put out inaccurate information. So if you're receiving all of your information on social media and you really can't verify the source, I think we need to be careful with that.
Okay. All right. And as your mentee, what advice do you have for me as I go forth with my Shero's quest?
I think your thirst for learning has not changed. I think your love for people has not changed. And I love your enthusiasm and your hard work ethic, and your desire to get stories out there and to help others. I think that's really what makes you good at what you do. You were a producer even when you were an intern.
I thank you for that. What are your closing remarks that you may have for my viewers?
I would just like to mention that I think it's very important that we continue to share our African-American history with our younger generations. I think it's important that they know hence where we came from, so we know where we're going, and that we encourage our young people who want to become journalists, to support that, because if we don't tell our stories, it seems to me it may not be told in the way that it should be.
Okay. I thank you so much for joining me here today, Tracey, and I look forward to following you and the many accomplishments and achievements that you have had, and I wish you all the best and success in the world.
Thanks for having me, and best of luck to you, Anita.
Okay, thank you so much.
Proud of you.
Nelson Mandela spent 27 years behind bars, mostly on Robben Island, just off the coast of Cape Town, a landmark reachable by ferry where Mandela endured brutal labor and found an unlikely friend, his warden, Christo Brand.
I was Mr. Mandela's warden for the last 12 and a half years in prison.
How long did it take for the two of you to go from prisoner and jailer to friends?
From my start on Robben, it took me about 8 months. On Robben Island, when I started, they told us we're going to meet the biggest criminals in the history of South Africa. I was trained with criminals. I was expecting gangsters' faces and things. But here I met elderly old people, treat me with respect, very humble and polite. I didn't knew the name Nelson Mandela at all.
You lived under the apartheid system. Obviously, you were on one side, he was on the other. Did you start to see the wrong in that system because of your association with him, or when it comes to the South African economy, the wine industry is one of the bright spots. South Africa is the world's 7th largest producer of wine, and no one has done it longer or better than Constantia.
Van der Stel was the first governor in the Cape, and he was he did such a good job that he was rewarded by the East Indian Company they gave him a gift, and the gift was a farm. He could choose the area, and he chose this area, but he was so thankful towards this East Indian Dutch officer that he named the farm after his granddaughter, and her name was Constantia, and today this area is still Constantia.
What is it that makes South African wines so special? Because they are growing in popularity around the world, and that's only because they are good wines.
We always said about other countries, we said you can find the best and the worst. But in South Africa, the average wine is pretty good. And because we are quite low price compared to the rest of the world. If you look at America, if you look at France, New Zealand.
Today, by singer-producer Muzi, celebrates the lives of the born free.
It's a new day and you invited. I want to live your best life. I want to have no worries.
I have an album out called Afrovision, which is really about us and the way we see ourselves, and then also controlling that rhetoric and not having people come and tell us who we are. So we sort of controlling that rhetoric now. It's inspired by Hakuna Matata, so the message is kind of similar. And
engage and connect people in Africa, and we hope that we take this model and take it throughout the entire continent itself.
Here in South Africa, names like Hugh Masekela and Miriam Makeba recall that deep connection between music and the fight to end apartheid. Today, more than a few next-generation musicians and artists are making a bid to put their mark on the country's future.
And when the
Zahara, an award-winning South African singer whose latest album went gold within hours of its release, hopes her music strikes a meaningful chord.
I want to be remembered as a girl next door that tried to change people's life with my music and to tell your story, even though you can't tell your story. There are so many people that can't tell their story because they can't talk. There are people that can't walk, they're in wheelchairs. But I am here. That's what I'm always saying. When I drop an album, it's telling a story. You'll find your story in my story.
24 years after Mandela was elected president, this post-apartheid generation recognizes it's their time.
It's not even about the big shoes to fill. When it comes to Tata Mandela and everyone, Tata Oliver Tambo, everyone, Mama Winnie Mandela, it's about, what do you think your future is good? What do you want to see? I remember Michael Jackson said, be the change that you want the world to be. It first starts with you. Have you checked in your life and have you started and changing your life and the
comment or share your story? Email us at abc7ny or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Sandra Booker. Enjoy the rest of your